So I say everything right, but my name is Becky. I've been worshiping here at Mosaic Church for about 3 years, and I serve as social media coordinator. I was asked to share. So I'm doing mine a little bit differently because I want to share a little bit about things that I've been learning and how God's been using it in my life, especially. Come on, it's 6 minutes, and I know I got to go fast. I said, okay. So I'm going to do something a little bit different because I want to share a little bit about things I've been learning and how God's been using this in my life, especially recently. So about 8 years ago or so, I think many of us started noticing some distinct changes across the country and splits that started in our various communities, political and social issues, and then COVID happened, which deepened a lot of those rifts. And then for me, I was feeling a distinct dissonance with what I had learned from growing up in my church and what I was seeing in my faith communities and from the quote-unquote church and public spaces. And it threw me into a bit of a faith crisis at the time. Thankfully, because of my relationship with God, I turned to him during that time. We had a lot of words, and and through that, I heard him tell me, go, listen, learn. And so that started a journey of learning for me. It started with social justice issues, history, American church history, because those areas are very closely linked. And then it led to topics like how the Bible came to be, broader church history, other Christian faith traditions, different theologies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's been a lot. And at first, I found this new to me information kind of disturbing. I was always so sure that I had the right answer, and now there's different perspectives. Like, what? I would beg God, just tell me what's right. I won't be a jerk about it. I just want to know. Just tell me. But I'm grateful that all this prompted me to lean into him rather than run away from him. And one day, while I was studying, I asked him for a revelation, and he gave me one. And it was, love me, love others. And I was stopped in my tracks for a little bit because it's not a new message, and it's a very simple message. But it clicked, and in kind of a Job 38 moment, I kind of felt God saying, hello, do you really think you're going to have all the answers? Are you me? Do you want that? How about trust me? Trust my spirit that I've placed inside of you. So, with no further certainties except that I do trust God to reveal what he will in the due course of time, and that and my fellow brothers and sisters in Christ have been wrestling through a lot of these topics for centuries now, I was set free. After all, I was already trying to live by faith anyway. So the need to know was one more chain that fell away from me. And once I stopped fighting with the need to know, I started to realize that this was a calling of the sort. First, to draw me closer to God, and then to start opening up to others. A lot of what I'm learning about is not necessarily popular in a lot of evangelical spaces. Personally, I am not super conservative, and I'm not easily offended, and I want to know stuff, so I explore a lot of different topics. So I was keeping a lot of what I was learning to myself. I did not want to be misunderstood or judged by my faith communities. And there were times where I had spoken up even a very little and had gotten hurt. And on one occasion, I had a brother ask me, how could I even call myself a Christian? But with time, I started seeing places where I could speak and realized that there are people who have been disillusioned with the church, quote unquote, which usually translated into some kind of legalistic type of upbringing. But they still love Jesus and they could be encouraged. So one example that happened recently was a friend of mine walked away from a very deep faith because she could not reconcile the idea of hell. Now this will get just a teeny bit controversial, but just bear with me. This is a little story. This topic weighed on her, and we talk about it frequently over the years. Last year, I came across a podcast and subsequently a few books that talked about, Christianity for thousands of years actually has a couple of different ways that they see this topic. There's universalism, annihilationism, there's, all kinds of things. But there were and presently are other ways that Christians see things on this topic. So without having to push any kind of a personal viewpoint, I told her, you can follow Jesus and change your mind about something or learn something different. She had never heard that Christians don't agree on this topic, across the board, and I hadn't either. So since then, we've been able to swap resources and talk about what we've been learning, but the coolest thing is that the last time I talked to her, she had started praying again. She said that she missed her best friend. And call me crazy, but I think that God can sort out the theological details. He wants to walk through this stuff with us, and he's trustworthy to lead us. So, and most recently, and this was kind of wild to me, I had someone message me on Instagram, and this is like deep waters here. Very respectfully, I was asked how I could hold some of the political views that I do and still stomach any version of the modern American Christian church. I was like, okie dokie. They had seen me in church a few times, and in their own journey, they were very cynical and angry. I was being asked if I was rebelling or being challenging. I was teasing. My dad might say I was. But it gave me a great opportunity to not only geek out, because I love talking about this kind of stuff, but also to share my heart. I love Jesus. I love his people. And I hate when systems use his name to manipulate, control, or oppress others. I want to learn everything I can so I can be ready to speak when the Spirit prompts. Through learning more about our holy book, which was prompted by this journey, I actually am more in awe of God and our book. Listening to different perspectives for me has been like looking through a kaleidoscope, and God's people are really beautiful. It's our imperfect glory, and God still accomplishes his purposes through us. So I know this is a little different than buying someone's groceries or something a little more straightforward than that, and I could have shared about that. But I've been asking myself why God put me on this journey and what this is kind of all about. I don't have a degree or think of myself as a student, and I don't have plans to teach or go to seminary. But then doors started opening for conversations, even among my atheist and agnostic friends. It's amazing when you can relate. Even in my home, Joe and I have some crazy conversations, which I love so much because there's no judgment while we're processing. And they get really, really out there sometimes. And seeing my son also be able to ask hard questions that we just wrestle through together is such a gift. And I'll close with this. It makes me think of Isaiah 55:11. So is my word that goes out from my mouth. It shall not return to me empty, but will accomplish what I desire and achieve the purpose for which I sent it. And thank you. And with that, we'll bring up Jamie to share the message for today.
Okay.
Right?